Look, here's the thing about retiring with a pension. Most people think it's simple. You've worked decades, earned your guaranteed income, and now it's time to relax. Sounds perfect, right? Well, not exactly. Here's the truth. Having a pension doesn't automatically make retirement easier. In fact, it can make things more complicated. There are landmines, irreversible decisions, and hidden ways to lose tens of thousands of dollars without even realizing it. Most retirement content out there, YouTube videos, blogs, HR brochures, is written for people who don't have a pension. That's not your situation. Your taxes, your investment strategy, even the decisions you make about how to collect your benefits, they all work differently when a pension is involved. Think of your pension like an anchor. An anchor keeps you stable in rough waters. It prevents you from drifting. That's the good part. But here's the catch. An anchor comes with a chain. That chain is made up of taxes, inflation, and permanent decisions that you lock in the moment you choose your payout option. If you don't understand how heavy that chain is, the anchor might not rescue you. Instead, it'll tie you to a location you didn't plan for. Let me give you a preview. In the next few minutes, we'll break down the payout decisions that are more permanent than you think, the tax traps that hit in your 70s, often unexpectedly, how your investment strategy should be adjusted when you already have guaranteed income, the slow erosion of purchasing power due to inflation, and what to do about it. By the end of this video, you'll understand that retiring with a pension isn't just about collecting a check. It's about planning for your entire financial life, your spouse's security, and the surprises that come decades after your first payout. Be honest. If this hits close to home, comment me. Now, let's dive into the most permanent decision you'll make in your retirement plan. Your pension payout option. This is not a math problem, even though it looks like one. Most people treat it as a monthly calculation. Single life pays more, joint survivor pays less. But the reality is far deeper. This choice affects you and your spouse for decades. Here's how it works. You usually have three options. Single life. Maximum monthly payment stops the day you die. Joint and survivor. Payments continue to your spouse after you pass, but monthly income is reduced. Period certain. Guarantees payments for a fixed number of years, even if you pass early, with monthly income somewhere between the other two. It's tempting to pick single life because the monthly difference can be hundreds of dollars, $300, $400, even $500. Over 20 years, that adds up to $72,000 to $120,000. That's real money. But here's the twist. The decision isn't about the money. It's about what happens to your spouse when you're gone. Let me give you a real example. A county engineer retired at 65 with a solid pension and chose single life because the monthly difference was $420. He and his wife assumed they were both healthy and had decades ahead. But he passed away at 69, just 18 months later. His wife, 64 at the time, lived until 88. For 24 years, she had no pension income. Sure, she had Social Security and some savings, but the pension, a lifetime of work, was gone. Not because of greed, but because he treated the decision like a spreadsheet, not a life scenario. Now, you might think, that's why joint survivor exists, and you're right, but it has limitations. You're effectively buying insurance from your pension fund. Unlike private insurance, you can't shop around or compare plans. You take what the fund offers, or nothing. For couples close in age and healthy, sometimes the single life plus term life insurance strategy is smarter. The idea: take the higher pension, then use part of the extra income to buy a term policy that replaces the lost stream if the pension holder dies early. It works, but only if the pension holder is insurable and the premium is less than the income difference. And here's the kicker. Most people don't consider the widow's penalty. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse's tax situation changes dramatically. Higher income thresholds shrink, Social Security may become taxable, and Medicare premiums can increase. On the same day your spouse dies, your income drops and your taxes go up on what remains. That's why your payout decision today can change your spouse's life on the worst possible day. In short, think of the pension as an anchor. It's strong, reliable, and keeps you stable. But the chain, the taxes, the survivor gap, the inflation, is heavy. You need to understand the chain before you drop the anchor, because once it's down, you can't pull it back up. Now that you understand payout options, let's talk about tax traps that hit most pensioners in their 70s. Even if you did everything right, these traps can sneak up on you. Here's the setup. When you retire with a pension, your income doesn't automatically drop. Unlike retirees without pensions, your monthly pension checks continue at the same level, and they're taxed as ordinary income. That means your income floor stays high, and your tax bracket may not shrink as expected. To illustrate, let's look at a real-life scenario. Your pension pays $48,000 per year. Social Security at full retirement age adds $20,000 for you and $12,000 for your spouse. Before touching a single dollar of your 401k or IRA, your total income is $80,000. For married couples filing jointly, the IRS has a provisional income threshold of $44,000. Once you cross that, up to 85% of Social Security benefits can become taxable. Your pension alone nearly hits that threshold. Combined, you're paying taxes on your pension and most of your Social Security from day one of retirement. That's roughly the same bracket you paid while working, not the lower bracket retirement articles promised. Then, at age 73, the IRS activates the Required Minimum Distribution, RMD. Every pre-tax retirement account, 401k, IRA, 403b, requires a minimum withdrawal each year. The amount is calculated by dividing your account balance by a life expectancy factor from the IRS Uniform Lifetime Table. For example, Frank, a high school teacher, retired at 63 with $480,000 in his 403b. By 73, it had grown to roughly $780,000. Dividing $780,000 by the factor of 26.5 equals $29,452. That's extra taxable income he didn't plan for. Combined with his pension and Social Security, it pushed him into a higher tax bracket and triggered higher Medicare premiums. His wife, if she outlived him, would face the same impact as a single filer. Here's the key point. Many retirees aren't aware that these RMDs can create a sudden tax spike, even when everything else seems fine. The pension gives stability, but the RMDs add a heavy link to the chain, silently increasing taxable income and Medicare costs. The strategy to manage this is called a Roth conversion. By converting pre-tax accounts into a Roth IRA before age 73, you pay taxes in a controlled manner and remove that money from the RMD machine entirely. Properly timed conversions reduce future taxable income, avoid bracket jumps, and prevent unnecessary Medicare surcharges. This step is especially important for anyone retiring with a pension, because your guaranteed income already forms a high baseline. Leaving pre-tax balances unchecked only compounds the tax problem. Understanding this interaction between pension income, Social Security, and RMDs is crucial. Ignoring it is like dropping your anchor without knowing how heavy the chain is. You think you're stable, but the hidden weight can pull you into trouble. Now, let's talk about your investment portfolio and how it interacts with a pension. Most retirement advice assumes you need a bond-heavy portfolio for stability and predictable income. But here's the catch. If you're retiring with a pension, that guaranteed income already acts as a massive bond allocation. Think of it this way. Your pension pays $48,000 per year. If you discounted it at current Treasury yields of around 4.5%, that pension is equivalent to over $1 million in bonds. If your investment account holds $500,000, your total assets are roughly $1.56 million, with 68% already in fixed income equivalents. Adding more bonds on top of that is redundant. It's like dropping a second anchor on the same spot. Here's a real-life example. A firefighter retired at 56 on a solid pension. His advisor put him in a conservative, balanced portfolio, 50-50 stocks and bonds, following standard protocols. But the pension already provided predictable cash flow. The additional bonds were unnecessary, creating a redundancy that slowed portfolio growth over the next decade. Contrast that with a growth-oriented allocation. By shifting the portfolio toward stocks, the firefighter could have increased long-term growth, maintained purchasing power against inflation, avoided selling into a market downturn to cover expenses. This two-pile approach works best. Pile 1, your pension, Social Security, and any other guaranteed income. This is your anchor, stable and unchanging. Pile 2, your investment portfolio. Its role is growth, not income generation. It compensates for inflation and increases your purchasing power over decades. Lazy investing often doubles the anchor without realizing it. By incorrectly focusing on bond-heavy allocations, many pensioners inadvertently reduce the growth potential of their portfolio. Correctly aligning investments with the pension floor ensures that your guaranteed income does its job while your portfolio continues to grow and hedge against inflation. Remember, retiring with a pension gives you structural stability. Your portfolio doesn't need to replicate the safety your pension already provides. Instead, focus on growth, long-term compounding, and staying ahead of inflation. This is how you leverage the pension's strength while avoiding redundancy and unlocking the true potential of your investments. Even with a guaranteed pension, there's a silent threat that many retirees overlook: inflation. Fixed pensions provide stability, but they don't automatically grow with the economy. Over time, inflation quietly erodes your purchasing power. Here's an example. A pension paying $48,000 per year in year 1 buys $48,000 worth of goods. If inflation averages 3% annually, by year 10, that same $48,000 only buys about $35,700 in today's dollars. By year 20, it buys roughly $26,300. That's less than half the purchasing power of the initial check. A postal worker who retired in 1994 with a $62,000 pension experienced this firsthand. By 2014, 20 years later, the same $62,000 could buy only what $34,000 could in 1994. He had planned his retirement around the nominal pension amount, not its real value, leaving him with a slow, silent decline in financial security. Even small annual adjustments, like a 1 or 2% cost of living increase, rarely keep up with actual inflation. Many pensions offer no adjustment at all. This creates a hidden risk that retirees often don't anticipate. While the check remains steady, its real-world purchasing power steadily declines. So, what can you do? The solution lies in your investment portfolio. If your pension covers the floor, your essential expenses, then your portfolio should focus on growth, not additional stability. Growth-oriented investments can help offset inflation and maintain your purchasing power over decades. For example, our firefighter retiree from Section 4 had a solid pension covering his baseline needs. His advisor initially recommended a conservative portfolio, but he would have been better served by a growth-focused allocation. This shift could have helped preserve and even increase his spending power over the long term, counteracting inflation's erosion. The lesson is clear. Retiring with a pension provides security, but not protection from inflation. Without a growth strategy in your investment portfolio, even a guaranteed pension can lose significant value over time. Think of your pension as the anchor, stable and reliable. But let your investment portfolio act as the sail, propelling your financial security forward against the current of rising costs. Even with careful planning, unexpected tax and inflation challenges can still appear. That's why retirees need corrective strategies, especially when retiring with a pension. One of the most powerful tools is the Roth conversion. Here's how it works. Take money from a pre-tax retirement account, like a 401k, 403b, or IRA, and move it into a Roth IRA. You pay income tax on the amount in the year you convert, but after that, the money grows tax-free, and withdrawals never trigger required minimum distributions. Essentially, you remove that money from the RMD machine entirely. Timing is everything. The ideal window is the period between your retirement and age 73, or before Social Security starts, when your income is lower than it will be later. Converting systematically over several years prevents a single-year spike that could push you into a higher tax bracket or trigger Medicare surcharges. For example, converting $30,000 to $40,000 annually for 10 years could move $300,000 to $400,000 out of the taxable pool before RMDs begin. Another strategy is term life insurance to protect a surviving spouse. If you choose the higher single life pension and buy insurance for the pension holder, the death benefit replaces the lost income stream, keeping the spouse financially secure. The key is to get real quotes while still healthy, and make sure the premium is less than the additional pension income you would receive. Scenario modeling is critical. Simulate the worst-case outcomes. What happens if the pension holder dies early, if inflation rises faster than expected, or if RMDs push your income into a high tax bracket? Modeling real numbers helps you decide between strategies, not just guess based on intuition. The underlying principle: your pension is the anchor, stable and reliable. The chain, taxes, inflation, and survivor gaps, can still weigh you down. Corrective strategies like Roth conversions and insurance help lighten that chain, so the anchor can secure you without dragging your financial plan under. Retiring with a pension gives you stability and guaranteed income, but it doesn't remove all risks. The lessons from Marcus, Frank, and the firefighter are clear. Without careful planning, your pension can feel like a safety net while hidden challenges quietly grow. Here are the key takeaways. Payout decisions matter. Treat your payout choice as the most permanent financial decision you'll ever make. Consider joint survivor or single life plus term life insurance and account for the widow's penalty. Don't just choose the larger monthly number. Plan for taxes and RMDs. Understand the required minimum distributions at age 73 and how they interact with your pension and Social Security. Roth conversions can reduce future taxable income and prevent surprises. Align your investments. Your pension acts as a stable income anchor. Avoid redundant bond-heavy allocations. Focus your portfolio on growth to preserve purchasing power and hedge against inflation. Protect against inflation. Even guaranteed income loses value over time. Factor inflation into your strategy, using growth-focused investments to maintain real purchasing power. Model scenarios. Simulate worst-case outcomes: early death, inflation spikes, tax changes. Planning for multiple possibilities keeps your financial life secure. Remember, retiring with a pension is just the start. The anchor gives you confidence, but the chain, the taxes, inflation, and survivor gaps, can still weigh heavily. With deliberate, step-by-step planning, you can lighten the chain, maintain security, and ensure your spouse's future. If you're ready to take control and secure your retirement, comment "Go."